Hi, welcome to Dad Surviving Divorce. I'm Dwayne, and today we're going to talk about preparing for a custody evaluation. On this channel, we talk about toxic divorces, parenting tips to help our children, techniques to help you cope, and ways to build a stable foundation for you and your children. So if you're involved in one of these situations, subscribe for more information and hit that bell to make sure that YouTube actually notifies you of new content. Okay, today's topic is custody evaluations, or in my state, they're called 730 evaluations. They might be called something different in your state. But what is a custody evaluation? Typically, it's a court-ordered child custody evaluation to look at the mental health and parenting techniques of one or both parents. In some areas like mine, they allow mini evaluations, which, although still expensive, they're not as extensive as a full-blown evaluation. I didn't realize mine was going to be a one-day review until I was already into it. I fully expected it to be in-home visits and stuff like that. And we're going to get into that more as we go through this video. So these type of evaluations are necessary when there are concerns for bunch of different things. So the child's safety, if there's any type of substance abuse, if there's any issues or concerns for mental health problems, although typically they don't really recognize personality disorders, so don't think this is going to be the panacea and that you're going to go to a custody evaluation. They're going to determine that your ex has borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, and that you're just going to, win everything. They're also ordered when there's going to be a move away or when the parents basically just can't agree on child custody. And typically, if you're dealing with a toxic ex or a toxic other parent, that is going to be the case. They're not going to agree. They're not going to really focus on what's in the best interest of the kids. They're going to be focused on getting everything they possibly can, and the custody evaluation can help you in that situation. Typically, there are a couple different ways that a custody evaluation can start. In my situation, I asked for it, but a judge can actually order it. Both parents can agree on it, which if they can agree on that, that's kind of weird, or one parent can actually push for it. Now, in my situation, I did it because I was trying to deal with the false allegations and the fact that the ex was trying to push for very limited time on my part, and I wanted more time. Custody evaluators typically are professionals who are eligible evaluators who have submitted through the family court system to participate in the system. Typically, that means they're going to be professional therapists and have experience in the field. Okay, we're going to dive into what you really need to know about custody evaluations. The first thing right off the bat, custody evaluations are extremely serious. The evaluator is basically going to take a critical look at you and your parenting styles and the entire situation. Even if you requested the custody evaluation, don't think that they work for you. They're neutral parties. Then their entire focus is on what's the best interest of the kids. So in an evaluation, depending on the type of evaluation, like I mentioned, mine was kind of like a smaller one. They potentially can do in-home visits to see how your home environment is and how you actually interact with your kids. Now, in our situation, I had actually asked about the possibility of home visits, and the evaluator basically said that if she felt it was necessary, she would do it. And as it turned out, she never visited either one of the houses. Okay, one of the things that's going to happen is they're going to give you a lengthy packet to fill out, basically, that covers your personal history, your family history, any issues you may have, and your concerns, what you have with the other parent. So give yourself time to complete these documents and make sure you do it thoroughly and make sure that you do a good job on it. So I'm going to get through into a minute about all the different people they talk to, but one thing I just want to hit right now is do not try to influence your children on where they want to live or try to manipulate them. Just be as neutral as possible and focus on the facts and focus on trying to basically demonstrate that you have a good relationship with your kids. Don't try to recruit them to basically denigrate the other parent. More than likely, if you're in this situation, that's already what's happening, is you're having parental alienation going on right from the start. And ultimately, the custody evaluators probably going to dig through that whenever they get into the interviews. Okay, this is a really important thing. You need to treat the custody evaluation as one of the most important job interviews you're ever going to take, because effectively you are basically being interviewed for the job of parent of your children. Okay, so in that, you need to remember things like the way you dress. You need to basically dress like you would for a job interview. You need to make sure you put your best foot forward and make sure you are taking this thing incredibly seriously. Show up on time for the appointments. Make sure you're there early. If there's something you're supposed to have, make sure you bring it. If there's something you're supposed to do, like have somebody there to watch your kids, make sure you do everything you're supposed to do. Now, this goes without saying, but get a good night rest before the evaluation and make sure you're ready. Make sure that you remain calm. Make sure you try to be as relaxed as possible. I completely understand that this is probably going to be one of the most stressful things or one of the many stressful things that you're going to have to go through. But you don't want to show up frazzled, tired, exhausted, basically to where it's not even an accurate representation of where you are. It's like basically you on one of your worst days. Okay, so the flip side to this is when you have to bring your children, make sure you do the same thing with them. Make sure that they're dressed appropriately. Make sure that their hair is brushed. Make sure that they've been showered and bathed. Make sure that they also, like it's like the first day of school, make sure that they look good. And you're basically, again, your entire situation is basically being interviewed and evaluated to really determine the type of quality of parent you are and how you interact with your kids. Okay, and this actually ties back into the job interview thing, but be yourself and don't fake who you think that you should be. They're professionals. They're trained to do that. They're trained to look and see through that crap when you do it. So don't do it. Just be who you are and let your children be who they are. Because if you try to portray something that's not accurate, they're going to see through it, and it's going to basically make your situation or the evaluation go worse because they're going to think that you're trying to hide something and basically trying to skew the results of the evaluation. And again, remember, they are professionals trained to watch that your actions follow your words. Now think about that, because that's a common thing that we talk about with when you're trying to interact and deal with a narcissist. Their actions don't follow their words. So, in this situation, you want your actions and you want your words to match up, especially in front of the evaluator, so they understand the type of parent you are and the type of relationship you actually have with your kids. Now, although I didn't have home visits, I'm going to talk briefly about some concerns that you should have or some things you should think about if you actually end up having home visits. So if your evaluation consists of home visits, again, treat it like an interview. Make sure your house is clean. Now, in that situation, your home is being interviewed for the job of parent. So make sure that everything is in order. Make sure there's food in the refrigerator with appropriate food for the age of your children. If your kids are young, make sure that you have, young baby food or whatever. I mean, make sure that it's age appropriate. Make sure that it's nutritious. Don't have a bunch of candy and stuff in your house and that's the only thing. Make sure that you actually can demonstrate that you can take care of your kids and that you are taking care of the kids, even if you only see them for a little bit of time. Make sure that you have all that ironed out and ready to go. You also want to make sure that your children have space or rooms in your house, basically for privacy. Privacy is really important, so to make sure that everyone isn't in the same room, and separate your children as much as possible. What I mean is that if you have boys and girls, try not to have them in the same room. Now, obviously, at the beginning stages of this, whenever money is really tight, you may not have that option. So make sure if you're in a small place that there's a room, you sleep on the couch, the kids have the room. Try to keep that separation as much as possible. And again, the custody evaluator is going to understand that in the beginning stages of this, with the way the finances are, you may not be able to have the accommodations to be able to house everybody. Now, in my situation, I was very fortunate that I was able to rent a house with enough bedrooms so each of the kids had a room. So although I didn't have an in-home valuation, I had everything ready. The kids all had their own rooms. They had beds. They had, clothing. There's food, all that stuff was in the house. So in the event that an evaluator did show up, I was ready to demonstrate that I was ready to be a parent, that I was actually doing it, and that everything was in order. The other thing for home visits is, be prepared for no notice inspection, although they're probably not going to happen that way, but just make sure that your house is in order. Make sure that everything is together so that you don't have some marathon cleaning event before they show up. You want to make sure that your house is basically, ding dong ready. So if they come if somebody comes to the door, you can let them in and you're not like, oh my God, I don't want, to deal with that. Now, not a 730 or a custody evaluation issue, but in the event that your ex starts calling Child Protective Services on you and stuff like that, and they come by to do a no-notice inspection, then you're ready for it, and they could come in and inspect your house and see that you have everything in order. All right, so now we're going to talk about what do custody evaluations really cover. Now, double check with your state for specifics, because each area might have a little bit different requirements or different instructions that they're going to give the custody evaluators. But this is basically how it went down in my situation. Okay, first thing, whoever is being evaluated, in my situation, it was both parents. Sometimes it can be just where one parent is ordered to be evaluated. Normally, whenever this thing starts, they'll do both. But both parents are going to go through a battery of psychological tests to determine your personality, your potential issues, to try to identify any potential problems. In my situation, that took a couple of hours in front of a computer going through a bunch of different tests to finish that up. The next part of this is one-on-one interviews with the evaluator. They're going to go through that packet I was talking about earlier. they're going to go through that almost line by line to address any issue you brought up, that about yourself, about your history, to basically try to figure out who you are, what your background is, and what really kind of motivates you. Okay, so the next thing that's going to happen is one-on-one interviews with the children. Now that's with just the evaluator. That's not going to be with you. You are going to have an opportunity, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, whenever they do watch you with the kids, but expect them to sit down with every one of your children and talk to them privately. Now, this is where if somebody is doing parental alienation, it probably is going to come out depending on how the whole process goes, but expect your kids to basically be pretty damn honest with what's going on. Okay, so after that, basically, the evaluator is gonna observe you and your interactions with your kids. In my situation, like I said, this was kind of a mini one. They did a 30-minute playtime thing where the first part of it was I was basically directed to set up what we were gonna do, what game we were gonna play, how we were gonna play it. We did that for about 15 minutes, and then it switched to put that away, and then the kids got to decide what they wanted to do and to see how we would all interact. So the key in that situation is if you have been portrayed as a monster and that you're abusive and that the kids are afraid of you, if that's true, it is absolutely going to be apparent, because you're not going to be able to hide that in that evaluation. Now, conversely, if it's a bunch of crap and it's not true, then the evaluator is going to be able to see what kind of relationship you really have. Now, that's what happened in my situation. It was readily apparent that the kids weren't, cowering in fear and deathly afraid of me. We got along really well, and it actually went really well. Okay, and then the last part of this, which I thought was a little bizarre, is we had a interview process with myself, the ex, and the evaluator, where she went through basically the concerns that both of us wrote up. So that was a little bizarre, because I had to sit there while the evaluator said, well, Dwayne, your ex says that you're a horrible human being and you like to step on kittens, that type of stuff. So be prepared for that. And part of it, think about it again, they are also trying to look how your interaction is. So be prepared for triggering things. Be prepared for your buttons to be pushed. Be prepared to have situations that are really going to test your ability to stay calm and cool in that situation. Okay, so bottom line, all of these things I just went through, they can either be in office, like that was in my situation, or they could actually end up being in-home evaluations. Now, these things can get incredibly expensive. Obviously, if they're coming to your home, there's costs associated with that, and it could potentially drive up the cost. So be prepared for that, and just be mindful that these things are not cheap. Now we're going to talk a little bit about basically the evaluation report and thoughts on that. So if you're being falsely accused of being abusive, this is your opportunity to really demonstrate the fact that it's not true. You're going to have an external person who is going to observe you and you by yourself, you with your kids, and potentially you with your ex, to make a determination on what is really true. So one of the things I want to just mention is everybody involved in family court, the judges, the attorneys, the evaluators, the doctors, the bailiffs. I mean, everybody understands that there's all kinds of allegations that are going on in family court. They basically expect it. So nobody necessarily puts a lot of clout into it unless you basically prove or demonstrate that those allegations are true. So, when you're entering this, just because somebody is saying something, don't think that you're completely torpedoed and your situation is, lost cause because of the allegations that are being thrown out against you. All right. Bottom line, the evaluation should demonstrate that you actually have a really good relationship with your kids. In my situation, that's exactly what happened. It shot the holes all through the abuse allegations and pretty much discounted all the, all the BS that was being thrown out there. And it exposed a situation that the whole purpose of it was just to try to get as much custody as possible. Okay. So in wrapping things up, just one of the typical things to deal with family court is you never necessarily know how it's going to go. So in the off chance, if you do poorly in the evaluation, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be disastrous. Now, obviously, it's not necessarily a good thing, but doing your best is the best option. But if you make a mistake, just pick up the pieces and move on. I think the little secret, unless there's a move away or something drastic, the thing is that the courts are really going to try to force both parents to be involved. So even if one parent is trying to say the other parent shouldn't be involved, that the other parent actually wants to be involved, the family court is typically going to try to facilitate that and make that happen. Now, that's not to say that if you blow a custody evaluation, it's not going to add extra restrictions and it may potentially reduce your time, but it's not necessarily the death toll that the entire situation is a complete disaster. So the other thing is do not expect this process to go quickly, and expect that your narcissistic ex is going to introduce delays and problems in the process. That happened in my situation. I mean, our evaluation should have happened in basically the Christmas break. She ended up leaving the state. It delayed everything. When she came back, she blew off the appointment and just kept pushing things back farther and farther and farther. And it took months and months and months, actually about 3 months. So it took month to actually finally get the report back. Okay, the other thing, and I kind of briefly touched on this a minute ago, is do not expect the custody evaluation is going to be that smoking gun that swings everything your way, or technically everything against you as well. But in my situation, I thought that it should have happened, right? I thought it really was going to point out some situations and really drive the point home. But what I just mentioned before about the fact that family court really is trying to work to keep both parents involved, it really doesn't work out that way. Now, obviously, in a situation where one person absolutely has to get custody, as in a move away, then those problems could be problematic. But here's the thing. If you're in a situation like I was in, where the other parent is basically trying to move away to basically get full custody, if there's no smoking gun in that evaluation, even though a minute ago I was talking about that don't expect it to work this way, she was going to lose custody, in my opinion. And I think that's the reason why she basically backed off the moving out of state. And then she was going to try to do another move away within the state. And that, again, was going to basically flip a move away ruling. And she didn't do that. So these things can be helpful in a situation depending on how bad, I guess, the things really are. And bottom line is they're really trying to focus on, even though it may not feel like it, like the best interest of the kids. So like in my situation, whenever we got to the point that it was like turning into a move away, the question was, well, why is it good for the kids? And just as a note, whenever the comment was, well, I have family in, the evaluator stopped it right there and basically said, family is mom, dad, and the kids. Brothers or cousins, uncles, grandparents, they don't count. It's mom, dad, and the kids. At least that's the way it was viewed in our situation, in my state and my locale. And as a result of that, if you're in a situation where you're staying where the kids are, to where you are basically saying, hey, the kids are going to stay where they grew up. They're going to go to school with their friends. They're going to participate in the school activities that they've always participated in. It gives you an advantage in that situation because it is in the best interest of the kids, because it gives them that stability. All right, so I hope that helped you out. If you guys have any experience with custody evaluations and tips and techniques that you think it would be good for other people to know, please share those in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe. Hit that bell notification so YouTube will actually tell you about it. And if you haven't gone over to the Dad Surviving Divorce website and signed up for the newsletter, please run on over and do that. And I will chat with you guys in the next video. Take care.